Welcome back to Iraqi Dinar News, your source for the most critical updates surrounding Iraq's currency transformation. What if we told you the value of the Iraqi dinar could surge to $0.56 within the next 72 hours? That's not speculation. It's a possibility gaining traction after a pivotal statement from Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani. His recent comments are sending waves across financial circles and sparking urgent conversations about one of the most significant revaluation moments Iraq has ever approached. Whether you're a long-term investor or just now paying attention, what unfolds next could directly affect your future. In this report, we break down exactly what was said, what it implies for the currency market, and what you need to do as momentum accelerates. Prime Minister Sudani recently made remarks that insiders say could signal the start of a full-scale currency overhaul. He alluded to bold economic adjustments, including potentially eliminating 3 zeros from the dinar and establishing a realistic exchange rate aligned with Iraq's growing financial strength. According to those close to the matter, this isn't idle talk. It's tied to a broader package of reforms aimed at restoring the dinar's true purchasing power, and based on current estimates, this shift could bring the dinar to $0.56 in value. That's right, from a deeply undervalued figure to over $0.50 per note, and it could happen faster than most realize. Let's start by understanding what dropping 3 zeros actually means. In practical terms, this would simplify Iraq's currency structure. Instead of dealing with thousands of dinars per transaction, 1 dinar would represent much more value. This kind of monetary reform has been used by countries like Turkey and Zimbabwe to stabilize their economies after periods of inflation or instability. In Iraq's case, it would send a message of renewal and strength. Crucially, this doesn't mean people holding dinar would lose value. The physical notes might change, but the real worth, especially for those holding large amounts, would remain the same. It's a reset in structure, not a reduction in value. However, the removal of zeros alone isn't enough. Sudani's full plan reportedly involves reinstating the dinar, a process that would restore it as a viable, internationally recognized currency. Currently, the dinar is not traded freely on most global platforms, which makes it difficult for Iraq to fully participate in international commerce. Reinstatement could involve temporarily linking the dinar to the US dollar, or perhaps backing it with Iraq's substantial oil and gold reserves. Either way, the move would increase global trust in Iraq's economy and open doors for more transparent banking and foreign trade. With reinstatement, the dinar wouldn't just be locally relevant, it would become a respected player in the international monetary system. Then there's the real effective exchange rate, often abbreviated as REER. This figure reflects what the dinar would be worth if adjusted for inflation and balanced against trade partners' currencies. For Iraq, that number is currently estimated between $0.40 and $0.60. Depending on factors like oil exports, inflation levels, and reserve strength. If Sudani's administration achieves these reforms, we could see the dinar settle within this range naturally, not as a speculative rate, but as an internationally accepted value. A new rate of $0.56, therefore, would reflect economic fundamentals rather than inflated hope. So why is everyone watching the next 72 hours so closely? It comes down to the structure of Iraq's current financial planning cycle. According to sources close to Baghdad, the government has already concluded essential agreements with the Kurdistan region, cleared major debt obligations, and met structural benchmarks required by the International Monetary Fund. These steps are not arbitrary. They're strategic moves leading to a precise economic event. Insiders believe this upcoming 3-day window aligns with internal budget recalibrations and monetary system upgrades. While no official public statement has yet confirmed the exact date of the revaluation, the convergence of these developments within this time frame is raising expectations to new heights. Adding to the momentum are signs of preparation at both banking and governmental levels. Several major banks in Iraq have stopped issuing large denominations and begun adjusting digital account entries. the Central Bank of Iraq has remained uncharacteristically silent, something we've seen before prior to major financial announcements. Analysts point out that in previous revaluation scenarios globally, central banks also held back public statements right before a rate adjustment. In this case, the silence is speaking volumes. Multiple sources claim that central bank staff have been ordered not to discuss exchange rate changes externally, further suggesting internal operations are underway. What does this mean for ordinary dinar holders, both in Iraq and abroad? If the value rises to $0.56, those holding 25,000 dinar notes could be looking at over $14,000, 0 cents, USD per note. That is a massive potential gain, especially for long-term investors who acquired their holdings when the dinar was priced under $0, 0 cents. 0 cents, 0.99. But more than just profit, this development represents a broader economic shift. A revaluation would also positively affect Iraq's middle class, increasing domestic purchasing power and reducing the cost of essential imports like medicine, wheat, and energy infrastructure. Former President Trump's previous administration laid the groundwork for several of these agreements by increasing economic cooperation and trade engagement with Iraq during his term. While the current administration continues on a quieter path, former policy frameworks still influence today's decision-making. Some experts believe the reduced tension between Baghdad and the Kurdish region, along with support from American financial institutions, is directly linked to earlier strategic alignments made under former President Trump's tenure. This historical context helps explain how we've arrived at this critical tipping point. Still, this is not without risk. There's always the possibility that last-minute delays, be they political, security, or logistical, could push the timeline further. However, what makes this moment different is the sheer volume of aligned elements. Budget law changes, regional agreements, monetary silence, and market indicators are all moving together. And unlike past cycles where rumors drove the news, we now have a sitting prime minister making bold public statements about rate realism and the need for change. That sets this apart from years of uncertainty. International observers are also watching closely. Major institutions like the IMF, World Bank, and global credit rating agencies have been reassessing Iraq's position. While none have confirmed the revaluation outright, their recent reports on Iraq's economic progress have turned sharply positive. Oil output is stable, foreign reserves are strong, and new legislation supports greater transparency in financial reporting. These elements form the foundation of a currency strong enough to re-enter global circulation at a respectable rate. As we close this report, one thing is clear: time is now a factor. Whether or not the $0.56 rate becomes public within 72 hours, the conditions needed for such a change are already taking shape. If you hold IQD, this is not the time to be passive. Make sure your documentation is in order, stay informed through trusted financial channels, and don't get caught up in rumors. Follow the actual movements on the ground. This could be the most defining week in the dinar's modern history. Stay with Iraqi Dinar News for the most accurate updates and trusted guidance as we monitor this unfolding event.